Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Get ready for truth bombs, belly laughs, and the kind of accent that turns car into a two-syllable adventure. Here's your host, Sean.
That have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Do you understand that? You ever fight in Iran like this? That have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Do you understand that? You ever fight in Iran like this? That have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Do you understand?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Edge of Liberty right here on the SHR Media Network. Thank you so much for joining me on Monday evening. Oh, no, it's Wednesday. Holy cow. I was shorting myself. Chat's open. Sorry, chatters. Took me a second to get going. Got a lot to talk to. Thank goodness. Everybody's rolling into the chat. Canadian Heavy Haul, Mission Ready Men. The Phantom's already in the chat. We are at 534 so far. And you're going to laugh because it's the most me thing I could do tonight. Fortunately, my printer's right behind me. And that's very fortunate because in all of my show prep and everything I did to get ready for tonight, the one thing I did not do was print out my finalized show notes. This wasn't technology. This guy right here. I blame. No, it's my fault. I'm not. Mike's in the chat room. Thank you, Mike. I know. Oh, it sounds like my camera mic's on. Really? Stand by. Ordy, you weren't first. Sorry, buddy, you were not first. No, everything says my sound is exactly how it's supposed to be. If I just had my show notes, I could start the damn show. Does it sound that bad for everybody? Because it's not. Let's try.
How's that? Is that any better? That's going to be nothing. And then, how's that? Is that any better? No?
I think it's that.
See? Oh, man. This is what happens. Uh-oh.
How's this? Testing 1, 2, 3. That one was better? This one? The one I'm on right now, that's okay? Dear Lord. And you know what's funny is, and I noticed something earlier too when I was logging in to get my broadcast ready. One of my sound bounce, or the sound bounce, if you will, that shows up on the board seemed weird to me. It just didn't match. Like you get used to your computer, whatever programs you use, you just get used to it. And it looked odd, and I was like, nah, it's just me. And it wasn't me. It was just wrong. So right here, I have all my show notes, and we're going to start right now. Right now. So as you saw, as President Trump said earlier, and just before I showed up and screwed everything up, there almost was a total fuck up with the Iran-Israel deal. Now, I talked about this the other night on Monday. I talked about the fact that there are always going to be a couple of volleys after a ceasefire agreement. And this isn't a permanent ceasefire. This isn't an end of everything, right? This is 12 days to kind of figure some shit out, which, it starts with one day. And we've been, 48 hours since an incident. The Iran, I laugh that the media makes such a big deal at what comes out of the Iranian government. They lie about absolutely everything. Absolutely fucking everything. And, they passed this in their, whatever their version of Congress is. They passed this, they passed that. Da, da, da. They're going to close the Straits of Hormuz. They're not going to close the Straits of Hormuz. They can't close their zipper. Never mind the Straits of Hormuz. And by the way, oil is still going down. I think it's down another 4% or something like that. So ceasefire went into effect on June 24th at, 6 a.m. Tehran time. And it was confirmed by both sides, which is a good thing. The aftermath from the news portion has been the biggest story. Now, obviously, people died. That was tragic. Obviously, anytime bombs are flying, it can be tragic. But the news, I said Monday night, talking about the operational security and how nothing was leaked prior and what a big deal it was. Well, now somebody is leaking alleged battle damage assessment from inside. They say the White House. It could be the Pentagon. We don't know. What I do know is this. I don't think that anything's being leaked. And you're going to say, no, Sean, obviously someone, no. I think the media was using the bad satellite imagery that was going out where it didn't show any damage because all the damage is underground. It's in a bunker. And I think what they did in order to try to sow divisiveness and issues inside the White House, they said, oh, we have a leaker who said X, Y, and Z, and they ran with it. They ran with it, hoping they were close to being right. And by all accounts, they weren't even close to right. And as I said, the bombs went down underground. It got to the point where DNI, Tulsi Gabbard had to come out and correct them. And then you had this put out by the CIA director, which I think says a lot, where he essentially said, hey, the damage is way more than they're talking about. Well, let's go with Tulsi first. Tulsi said this. If the Iranians chose to rebuild, they would have to rebuild all three facilities, which would take years based on the damage that was done. That was her comment. And then DNI, Tulsi Gabbard also put out new intelligence confirmed POTUS has stated numerous times Iran's nuclear facilities have been destroyed. If the Iranians chose to rebuild, as I said, it would take time. So the damage is being done, which is funny because the news is saying otherwise. And I get it. I get that the news only has I think CNN on their nightly shows get like 400,000 viewers, which to a show like me, that's a lot. But when you're a mainstream media and you have all of those resources, that is absolutely deplorable. So divisiveness with this attack. That was the other thing. So the media, this is what pisses me off about them so fucking bad. You see, they don't care about what was stopped in Iran. They don't care about the conflict. No, what they care about is sowing divisiveness, anger, getting people pissed off and tuning into them, and an echo chamber of saying what those people who are pissed off want to say. One of their big things is that this attack that Trump approved absolutely divided the GOP. MAGA's is split. MAGA's dead. MAGA this, MAGA that. They're all fighting each other, blah, 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 blah. And then CNN, some of the same people that were saying those very things had to admit this. This is the approval for the airstrike on Iran.
Yeah, I think there's this idea, okay, maybe the MAGA base wouldn't necessarily like this. Look, this is Donald Trump's Republican Party. That's what I think is so important to note. GOP on the...
So that's what's funny is he puts out a little disclaimer. Oh, this is Trump's party. In other words, no matter what Trump, everyone's going to support him, which is not true. I've said things in his past administration, a couple things in this administration that I wasn't thrilled with. Others have. It's not a big deal. We can disagree and still be friends. See, that's what they don't understand because they can't do that. Look at those numbers. 76% of the GOP approved of the bombing attack in Iran. 18% disapproved.
The U.S. airstrikes in Iran, 76% in the average of the two polls approved, compared to just 18% who disapproved. Now, I will note that is a bit higher than Donald Trump's disapproval rating within the Republican Party. But overall, Republicans are with Donald Trump on.
Yeah, there was a lot of people who were against it, and that's their right. And just like it's my right to look at it from my perspective, which, look, tactically, who knows when you were going to have another opportunity like that. Israel had been in there for, what, a week, softening up defenses, taking out the air defense. The air defense was pretty much nothing. They said that some air defense engaged while the bombers were overhead, but nothing was happened. Okay, maybe they had ATAC guns going off because all of their actual hardcore air defense had been taken out for weeks. And we know that because Israel was announcing where they were going to strike. So they knew there wasn't enough air cover in Tehran to worry about it. So that part's gone. They going further into the damage, they killed a couple of Iraqi Quds force commanders, and after the fact, Hezbollah's been rocking a few rockets into Israel, and there was 12. Was it 12? Yeah, 12 missiles fired at 2 air bases, one in Iraq and the other one in, I believe, Saudi Arabia. I'm sorry. One of the other countries over there. I forgot to write it down. All of them were intercepted. Nobody got hurt, so it wasn't a big deal. So now we're at this peace portion of the show. I really hope where we have to figure out what's going to happen, and it's still tense. Look, it's the Middle East. If one little missile goes, the whole dang thing could be destroyed, right? I mean, that's just how it is. So we have to be cautious, but we also have to look at the success that happened with this. Trump did exactly what he said he was going to do. And I think that's why the GOP approval rating is so high, is because he got in, he got out, no questions asked. I mean, obviously there were people complaining, but overall, no questions asked. So then he went to NATO. Qatar, thank you. I couldn't think of Qatar. Then he went to NATO, and the White House put out the funniest damn video of Trump arriving in NATO. And it, as I've said, if there's one thing this president can do and this administration can do, is troll everybody. This is the video they played of him arriving in NATO from whitehouse.gov.
Daddy's home.
Daddy's home. At some point, somebody was speaking, I don't even know who it was because I was laughing too damn hard when I first saw it, referred to Trump as daddy because he's getting everybody essentially in NATO to kick up to 5% of their GDP, which is unfreaking believable because some of those, and remember, they're still struggling to do this after they were so worried about Russia invading them, right? Some of those countries were still at 1%, 2%. And now Trump saying at the G7, or I'm sorry, Trump saying at the NATO rally, yeah, NATO listens to me because I'm their daddy now. And apparently, once again, blasted Germany and France. Now, the issue I have with NATO, obviously, there's Article 5. That's a big deal. It does. I see the theory behind it, but right now, Russia is not what Russia was. We could talk about that all day. That was the biggest reason Article 5 was put in, yada, yada, yada. But you get to today, and you have all these countries who did nothing but bitch and moan that we weren't doing enough inside of Ukraine with Russia, that we weren't putting enough boots. They wanted boots in the ground. They wanted us to essentially eliminate Putin and the Russian forces, right? That's what it comes down to. And they still have a hard time getting people and getting countries to pay their fair share. You have what blows my mind is the people who will swallow the narrative that Russia is this big frightening force that's going to roll all over Europe and potentially the world, who can't beat Ukraine with what Ukraine has and the hundreds of thousands of troops that Russia has. And I know I'm a broken record on this. I know it. It just makes me so furious that so many people just gloss over all of this. But they're so worried about that. And they want us to do all that stuff with Putin and Russia, but they won't kick in enough money for their own protection over there because for years, they've siphoned off the American defense that they absolutely enjoy practically for free. And we keep paying all of this money into NATO. We had been, and I'm glad Trump's calling them out. But they won't pay it into themselves. Now, look, I get that a lot of these countries, the UK and some others, are having financial issues. That is internal problems. There are ways to solve that. They refuse to do that. New York is probably going to learn a lesson really soon about that. But that's just the reality. So Trump goes over there and he essentially just struts around The Hague. And, you know, we had Zelensky last week, Zelensky actually showed up wearing a suit. Can everyone believe he has a suit? I was blown away. So you can go to NATO in a suit, but which you're not even a fucking member of NATO. He's not even a member of the NATO. Ukraine's not a member of NATO, but he's there in a suit. But he can't come visit the president and the vice president in the suit. Again, it tells you what an absolute shitbag Zelensky is. We have all these other countries, not all of them. Some of them have definitely boosted their GDP up and matched it. But it shows you this overall disdain the rest of the world really fucking has for us and how much they expect us to just keep paying for everything and shutting our mouth. And as soon as we stop doing it and we see it at home, as soon as we start enforcing rules and standing up for us as a nation, our sovereignty, our taxpayers, our people, our place in the world, everybody stomps their feet and gets angry. It's absolutely infuriating. He wants to be in NATO so bad. Yeah, no, Zelensky, Canada Heavy Haul in the chat room just said that. It's 100% true. He wants NATO so freaking bad, it's not even funny. What was the whole freaking point of the dust up Ukraine and NATO? That is, look, Ordy, I don't know. Ordy put that in the chat room. Look, as soon as Russia took Crimea, the idea of putting Ukraine in NATO went bye-bye in real life. And they all know it. Everybody in NATO knows that. When Obama was in office, and I like to precedence that because people forget, Obama was in office when Russia stormed Crimea. But Crimea at that point is already an invaded nation. If they had put in, and has been this entire time, that when I talk about Ukraine with people and I bring up Crimea, a lot of them are still under the impression that the Russians left Crimea completely, and then this engagement was a separate one. It wasn't. The Russians were always there. Crimea has been in the hands, 08 of the Russians? So if they were to allow and admit Ukraine in, Article 5 would be instantly activated because a NATO state was being invaded by an exterior or an outside force. That would have, right there, that would have triggered Article 5. And guess what? On top of us not wanting to deal with it, because why should we have to when it's in fucking Europe? But you go beyond that. All of those countries who have saved money by cutting their defense, expecting daddy, the United States, to come in and save their ass, would have been hung out to dry because they wouldn't have had the resources to kick in that they should have kicked in. They still don't. Most of the European NATO countries do not have what they are supposed to have to protect themselves because, once again, they wanted to suckle off the teat of the American taxpayers. And it's there. I mean, look, the Soviet Union is not a global threat anymore. Outside of their nukes, the Soviet Union is not a global threat anymore. They weren't before they invaded Ukraine under Biden, which is why they couldn't roll over Ukraine under Biden. I mean, I've said this a dozen freaking times. So everybody in NATO, instead of treating us for years as they should have been, and instead of arguing different reasons why Zelensky in Ukraine shouldn't have been admitted, they should have been honest with the world. Hey, yeah, we can't let them in because this would immediately initiate Article 5 and we would all be at war with Russia. And Putin, being Putin, would have sent everybody in that country to die and would have taken as many of us with him if he thought the end was near. Now, is Putin a POS? 100% yes. Does Putin need to go? 100% yes. Is that an American problem? 100% no. Not really. He's a pain in the ass to work with. He does a lot of shit that we don't like. And he's a horrible human being. But there are plenty of countries that have horrible human beings as leaders. It is not our job to remove all of them. Right? And I told you before, and people are going to say, oh, well, what about Iran? Because we just dropped the bombs. Yeah. The difference is regional power, LARPing is a paper tiger world power. Or you're 100% right. That's who Russia is. And they're exposed now. Everybody sees it now, which is why the UK's, Europe and NATO is acting so much tougher verbally. It's why they're willing to support NATO, Ukraine so easily and throw money at them, is because they know it's not going to go anywhere. But to go back to my point of Iran and why we did in Iran, the difference is, as I said Monday night, the Iranian leadership, they're true believers. They don't care. If they got a nuke, they would have launched the first one they had if they thought they had a reason to. And that's it. End of story. End of list. So we'll see what comes out of NATO. I mean, he's already on not much came out of NATO. They all sat around. A couple people whacked each other off and talked about how great they were. Said we got to, Trump said, hey, everyone's going to kick in their fair share. And then he left. And that's really every meeting that Trump's ever had with NATO. And he's not wrong. But why would you sit around for days at a time talking about it, or beyond essentially getting that sentence out? Hey, Cosmic Bard's in the chat. Thank you. Beside the Finland joined after anyone after that is just a letdown. Yes, I know. Your roots did well. But look, if Russia had occupied a quarter of Finland, they would not have been admitted. That's just a reality and I don't know why that never comes up in conversation, but it's the truth. So I want to talk a little bit about some of our wonderful politicians at home now that I've gone around the world and nailed some of the
Not for nothing, but I want to.
There's this whole thing. Oh, by the way, I put out when they signed the peace treaty, I put out a joke post that wasn't really a joke where I said, hey, the director of all the riots are going to tell them, hey, you guys are on in 5 minutes because we're going to start rioting again, because now that there's no conflict, or the conflict with Iran and Israel has been lessened, we got to amp this back up, because Trump did exactly what he said he was going to do, and it actually made him look way better than we thought it was going to do. And now we have nothing to get him on, so we got to go back to the ICE riots. And son of a bitch, just like that, it's almost like ICE is on the front page news again. You start seeing about this arrest and that arrest, and they're mad. Oh, it was a Marine's father. And then you watch the video. The Marine's father was chasing around ICE agents with a gas-powered weed whacker. That's why he got hemmed up. And he happened to have been illegal. So he got sent away, or he's going to get sent away. It kills me that they're putting themselves. Look, if I was illegal, and I know they're hitting everywhere. They're hitting Home Depots. They're hitting job sites. They're doing it. They're looking for them. Right? They're hitting apartments. They got rid of 150 Iranians this week, which tells you something big. Some of them were on the the special interest alien list. Some of them, one of them, I wish I saved it and I didn't. One of them still had his IRGC, Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps ID on him, and he was an IRGC sniper. And he crossed the border in, I think, 2023. He was one of the guys arrested. So, I understand they're all dreamers, but maybe some of them not. But then you have our politicians who are still pulling the same bullshit that they were pulling. This is going to piss you off if you haven't seen this. If you're on social media, you've probably seen it. This is the vice mayor of Los Angeles. And I can't remember what her name is off the top of my head. And it doesn't matter. She's the vice mayor of Los Angeles, and she needs to step down because she said this. There's a delay tonight. I don't like that. There we go.
Not for nothing, but I want to know where all the cholos are at in Los Angeles. 18th Street, Florencia. Where's the leadership at? Because you guys are all about territory, and this is 18th Street, and this is Florencia. You guys tag everything up, claiming hood. And now that your hood's being invaded by the biggest gang there is, there ain't a peep out of you.
So this is the vice mayor of Los Angeles. She's calling out all of these Hispanic gangs who are prominent in Los Angeles. She said, you guys tag everything up. You say it's your neighborhood, but now the biggest gang, she's referring to ICE as a gang, and you guys don't show up. She is encouraging gang members in Southern California to attack ICE.
It's everyone else who's not about the gang life that's out there protesting and speaking up. We're out there like fighting our turf, protecting our people. And like, where you at? Bien calladitos, todos los chulitos. I'm like, dude, they're running amok all up on your streets.
Can you imagine, please, just for a moment, can you imagine a conservative mayor, when there was whatever protest comes to town, start calling for, I don't know, pick a white gang, the neo-Nazis or whatever, to show up, right? Everyone would be going absolutely batshit crazy, and rightfully so. All of them are just scumbags. Doesn't matter what color their paint job is. Doesn't matter what side of the aisle are on. There's absolutely horrible gang members out there, and they should be dealt with appropriately. Not being called to action by the vice mayor of Los Angeles. Cosmic Bard says, you notice her TikTok voice here is more female Hispanic than her normal voice. They're all actors. Yes, we'll talk about that. Other politicians that are actors. Let's see, chat. Oh, MD Campbell, thank you for joining us. Well, Hollywood is just down the road, according to Canada Heavy Haul. Yeah, this is all, I mean, I saw this and my skin crawled. I was so aggravated. You're calling gang members to come to your aid and fight federal agents who are trying to remove people that are here illegally. But let's listen to the vice mayor.
On your streets and in your city. And Pete, when the big gang guns come in, nothing but like quiet, and we're out here, the regular ones that have never been jumped in, out here calling things out, trying to organize people, trying to do the thing. So don't be trying to claim no block, no nothing. If you're not showing up right now, trying to like help out and organize, I don't want to hear a peep out of you once they're gone, trying to claim that this is my block. This was not your block. You weren't even here helping out. So whoever's the leadership over there, just fucking get your members in order.
She essentially just called all of those gang members pussies. That's really what it boils down to. And they're all violent gang members. They're all involved in gang shootings and other violence. And she just called them out to attack ICE agents. Now, if at any point from here on out, if there is an ICE agent who is shot and attacked by one of these gang members, or stabbed and attacked, or whatever, attacked at all, shouldn't she be held responsible? Doesn't that make sense? She should be held responsible, right? The fact that she has not been forced to step down yet, at least by the time it went to air, and by the way, her name is Cynthia Gonzalez. She's the vice mayor of Cudahy, California. I live in the state. I have no idea how to pronounce that. Yeah, no, Mission Ready Men is right. He says, wow, she is inciting violence. Yeah, she's calling gang members to lynch people free from federal agents who are enforcing the law. And that's why the FBI is investigating her, waiting for the left to scream fastest. Yeah, no, she needs to be investigated. Like I said, if this was the other way around. And look, if she says, why aren't all you guys fundraising, or why aren't you guys all volunteering, or why aren't you guys like trying to help like in a way that's non-violent? Okay. She slides through. Even if she said the message in a coded manner, we all know what you're saying, but you were smart enough. She wasn't even smart enough to bullshit her way through it. She straight out called organized gangs, validated gangs, gangs that if you commit a felony while you're a member of that gang and validated, you get an enhancement in California. That's how serious these gangs are. She's calling them out. It's unbelievable. It's absolutely disgusting, and I'm furious. Absolutely fucking furious. And I'm also up against a break. Look, please like and subscribe if you like any of this BS that I'm talking about tonight, or any of the other members on SHR Media. We're trying to grow those numbers. It's real simple. If you want to get in the chat, you go to SHR Media on YouTube. Just click the little red circle right now. Or I believe you go to the homepage. I'm live right now. You can get in the chat just by clicking on this video and jumping in. Be right back.
Welcome to River of Common Sense, where we cut through the noise of news and politics with a sharp wit and clear discussion. Tune in every Monday and Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for a refreshing dose of reality as we fearlessly tackle the tough topics with no nonsense, just pure common sense. Visit shrmedia.com to discover where you can catch River of Common Sense in action. He's here to amplify your inner logic. He may not always be polite, he may not always be refined, but one thing's for sure, he always tells it like it is.
Come listen to BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon Radio Show. Live on select and exclusive Tuesday and Thursday nights at 11 p.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. Central, and 8 p.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Rumble channel, SHR Media YouTube channel, X, Twitch, Spreaker, and wherever great conservative podcasts are found. BZ, your conservative Sherpa, guides you through the maelstrom of Democrat, leftist, and globalist lies, chaos, deceit, and betrayal. Raised as a free-range child with dirt, stains, mud, and freedom, BZ broadcasts from North Idaho, comfortably surrounded by actual normal people. Jump into our plush, sumptuous, palatial, and resplendent chat room on rumble.com. Click on live chat to join. Now, with 37% more umbrage and 19% more bulbosity than previous shows, featuring delicious Liberty additives for the best in late-night conservatarian talk radio. BZ reminds you that with great beard comes great responsibility. No chinchillas were harmed, embarrassed, fat-shamed, or the focus of any sarcasm whatsoever in the making of this ad.
Mark Rutte, the NATO chief, who is your friend, he called you daddy earlier. Do you regard your NATO ally?
I want you to focus. I'm going to play this back one more time. This was from NATO today. Look at Marco Rubio, who normally keeps a pretty good straight face. Watch Marco in the corner.
Regard your NATO allies as kind of children.
No, he likes me. I think he likes me. If he doesn't, I'll let you know. I'll come back and I'll hit him hard, okay? No, he did it very effectively.
Oh, welcome back to the Edge of Liberty right here on the SHR Media Network. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to our great friends over at KLRN for the simulcast. I greatly appreciate it. I talked earlier about the influence of certain countries over here, and this is going to be one of those conversations where they're going to say to you, oh, if you don't support this guy, it's because you're anti-Muslim, you're anti-brown people, you're racist, yada, yada, yada. For those who don't know, the New York City mayoral race is fucking weird. Absolutely fucking weird. First, you had Mario Cuomo, who, the former governor Cuomo, rather, who had to step down and resign as governor, which is how we got Hochul in New York, because of some sexual harassment allegations, right? Should have ruined his career. If that was, again, any other friggin' politician on the right, career over, end of list, over, right? Nope. He's going to come back and run for mayor. So that's a little odd that there's all those people in New York City, and that's the only person who could actually get to the top front of the line until Zoran Mamdani showed up. He works for the New York City government now. I think he's a councilman or something like that. He's one of those kind of mid-level politicians, if you will, bullshit artist. And he beat Cuomo last night in the DNC primary. And let's be honest, it wasn't even close. It wasn't even friggin' close. And this tells you how far New York City's sliding. He is a self-proclaimed socialist Democrat. He has spoken his support for Hamas. You remember Hamas? October 7th, those guys? Yeah. Spoken support for Hamas. And he's just, I mean, his plans are beyond insane. He's a firm believer in this is in his platform, that essentially cops should go away and social workers should come in. He wants to put like $60 billion in like social something or other. It blows my mind. He doesn't speak well of America. He wants to replace the NYPD with social workers, $10 billion tax hike on business, the business and the wealthy. He wants city-run grocery stores. Let me run that back again. My apologies. City-run grocery stores. Socialism. And what does that do? It puts out all of the supermarkets that are in business, including the small family-owned ones, because the city has more buying power. And when you make all the rules on how you operate as a business, oh yeah, mission ready men, I'm going to get to that in a second. I'm still stuck on the socialism part. That part is, yeah, sorry. You made me angry. You made me angry, not at you, but he wants a city-run socialism. Folks, when you can control all the rules and laws that govern a business within a city, it's just like Obamacare, right? They change everything, so you're forced to go to these certain amount of healthcare businesses. He's going to change everything, so you're forced to go out of business if you're a grocery store, and the city will get to run grocery stores. And guess what? They can decide how much you buy, how much they can start limiting freedoms as much as they want. No, that'll never happen. Why? They limited sodas under Bloomberg. You can only get what, up to a 42 ounce or something like that? It's absolutely a way to transfer wealth, because what you're doing is, yes, they're going to use all the corporate stores as the example. Oh, this corporate store does this and this corporate store does that. What you don't realize is the amount of grocery stores, bodegas, and corner shops that are owned by small businesses, families still in New York City is astronomical. And I'm not kidding. They're everywhere. And they're still, it's one of the few places in the country where you can still go walk into a corner store and have it be owned by the person working the counter. And in their every block, all over the place, they would all be threatened by this, all of it. And yeah, just look at our healthcare system up here. Canada Heavy Hall says, oh yeah, that's a great example, right? When was the last time you got in to see a doctor same day? But what if they turn around and say, oh, you can't, and not if you're on SNAP or anything like that, because that's different. But they turn around and say, oh, no more red meat, no more pork, because it insults in the city markets, because it insults the Muslim people. Oh, no more of this food because it insults this people. You can have this and be happy. Now leave. It's absolutely insane. And yes, he defended, globalized the Intifada publicly. publicly. And just, I'm going to pull up the actual textbook definition because I think intifada gets thrown around, and I meant to pull this up earlier. I think it gets thrown around a lot, and people don't really know what it means specifically. The globalized intifada is an Arabic word meaning tremor, shivering, or shuddering, derived from the term. But what it means in common text is essentially they rule anything that they want to rule, and they roll over the world, and they take everyone who doesn't believe out. That's what an intifada is. I mean, it's an uprising. It's called that's the other term is uprising or shaking it off. I apologize. So he's now for the elimination because if you follow the rules back to Palestine, wipe the Jews off the planet, and he's supporting that. That's part of the intifada, excuse me. The city won't stop selling cigarettes and malt liquor. They'll be happy to capitalize on. Oh, no, they will. They'll still keep liquor stores. They'll make the taxes off that. And then what they'll do is they'll do what they did with cigarettes. They'll demonize the product and then tax the bejesus out of it. So you were forced to almost not smoke. California, a great example of what they did here. They jacked up the prices. So it's like $10 a pack, $11 a pack. The county and city of Sacramento, and now the state followed suit, but they were the first ones to do it, I believe. They got rid of Newports, anything that had a flavor to it, anything Swisher Sweets that were all the cherry and strawberry and yada, yada, yada. They got rid of it under the guise of too many young black males were becoming addicted to tobacco. So we're going to get rid of the stuff that they were buying so they wouldn't do it anymore. I.e., they're not smart enough to choose for themselves. So we're going to choose for them. Yeah, you'll see more cigarette gangs. Oh, yeah. It'll be like back in the day. Do you remember, and this was Cosmic Bart said, you'll see more cig smugglers in Vermont going back to New York City, New Hampshire as well. Yep. You remember back in the day where they had the stamps on the bottom of cigarettes? I don't know if they even have them anymore, but every state had a stamp, and that was a tax stamp, and that was, you couldn't sell, if it had a stamp from one state, you couldn't sell it another because that was more of a tax, and people used to smuggle the cheaper cigarettes into this county or the state that had more expensive cigarettes, yada, yada, yada. It was absolutely a smuggling ring that, like, there were people that died over it, shooting, and there were rival gangs, just like any other smuggling ring. And they're going to end up bringing that back. Canada Heavy Hall says, Canada did the exact same thing, got rid of all the cool shit. Yeah, no, limit your choices, right? The Rutland, Vermont train station is right next to Walmart and goes straight down to New York City. So you may ask yourself, going back to Mamdani, who is he? Well, he was born in Kampala, Uganda, to an Indian Ugandan dad and an Indian American filmmaker mom, who I don't even know. Somebody told me today that she's pretty popular in Hollywood. I legitimately did not know that. He moved to New York City at age 7, attended public schools, became a naturalized citizen in 2018, graduated from Bowdoin College, worked as a foreclosure prevention and housing counselor in Queens, and apparently I saw one video of this guy who is a rapper under the name of Young Cardamom and released a couple of rap videos. And holy shit, am I a better rapper than this guy? I saw it and I was like, oh, dude, if I was your opponent, I would just be playing that 24/7. I wouldn't even be talking about topics. I'd have it on my phone. So if there was a debate, it'd be like, oh yeah, really? Young Cardamom, listen to this, and just put it up to the microphone. It was that bad. Let's see. He also wants to do free city buses, public childcare, municipally owned grocery stores, as I said, and rent freezes. If he's elected, he'd be the first New York City Muslim American mayor. Let's see. Personal life, he's married. Girl he met on Hinge. He's an assemblyman right now. I apologize. I said city councilman. He's an assemblyman. I think there is actually a difference in that. He is also He was also in a Disney movie. Yes, I was just going to say Mission Ready Man. He was also in a Disney movie. But he was also the infamous New York State politician who was threatening Tom Homan when he was visiting up in New York. That guy who was screaming and pushing backs against the cops like he was tough, that's who this guy is, Mamdani. The other thing he said is he would immediately stop the New York City Police Department from working with ICE. So I want you, let's just say this guy wins, because Eric Adams is still in the race, and what's his name from the Guardian Angel still in the race. I always screw up his last name, Cizili, or whatever. But let's just say this guy pulls it out against Eric Adams, which, by the way, apparently after he won last night in the primary, the Google search out of New York City for socialism went through the roof. People voted for shit and they didn't even know what it was. That's what that's telling me. But let's say he wins, flash forward 2 years, 3 years. If you think San Francisco was bad, and it is, if you think Boston is bad, and it is, for big government screwing everything up, Curtis Siwa, that's it. Thank you, Cosmic Power, Curtis Siwa. For not policing properly, for just letting a city get run down by its own devices. San Francisco right now is the top of that shit chain, food chain rather, of just bad decisions that followed bad decisions, that spent bad money after bad money after bad money, and they're still not changing direction fast enough to save the city. They're doing some little changes. They have a new mayor. He's trying to make both sides happy. Oh, look, we're enforcing the law, but we're still taking care of people, but it's just not happening. Chicago, another great city of an example that has gone right down the shitter. New York started to go down the shitter, and then they tried to straighten things. De Blasio was just the worst. Eric Adams started off really bad, and then he realized how bad shit was getting, and he kind of tried to turn it around, and he tried to come back towards the center. Eric Adams was what I used to call a California Republican when he was a cop. He was a centrist at best, but he called himself a Republican. When he ran for mayor, he was slightly left of center, but he was still pretty far center on his public words. Then he became mayor, and he started doing hardcore left shit because I think he thought it was going to propel him to the next level. And then when it all imploded, he had to reverse course. And then all of a sudden he was the one who was defending immigration. Oh, it's okay for all these people to come in and they have to stay in Texas, and I don't want them in my city. And then when they got there, he was like, we got to get rid of these fucking people. That's Eric Adams. I think Eric Adams is going to pull it out again. I really do. I think that he will beat this guy. Fingers crossed. But as I played on my last show, you had enough Iranian supporters, Iranian government supporters that were marching down the streets of New York, mad that we bombed the nuclear facility for the place that wants to wipe Israel off the earth. Just keep that in mind. So anything's fucking possible. And New York can be weird. It's really going to be who decides to show up that day. I really think the best thing Curtis Siwa can do, honestly, is support Eric Adams at this point. Step out, support Eric Adams, because as much as I hate the idea of voting against somebody instead of for somebody, when there is not a for somebody to vote for, and Eric Adams isn't really somebody that's making everybody thrilled, but in this case, it's better than the alternative. Because I'll tell you right now, if this guy gets elected mayor, New York City is going to be worse than San Francisco in 2 years. Mark my words. It's going to be absolutely fucking ridiculous. And I want to end in my neck of the woods because, man, these judges, and I just got to pull up one thing. There we go. I had it saved, and I want to make sure I can pull it back up. Do you remember the judge out of Boston who turned around and said, hey, Judge Murphy, hey, essentially you can't deport the people you want to deport because I'm a judge and I say so. And naturally, the Trump administration fought. It went to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court said, Yeah, no, they can. They can deport people, and that's completely fine. And you really don't have any standing in this matter. It's above you, yada, yada, yada. This judge, Brian E. Murphy, who was appointed in 2004 by President Biden, turned around and said, yeah, I'm not going to follow suit with that. I'm not going to do what the Supreme Court says. I'm not going to do what the Supreme Court says. A federal judge. The Supreme Court is the absolute highest court in the land. How can you defy them? But when you're a judge, you work directly for them, essentially. They're the ones to go to when a decision can't get made properly. When we talk about these judges who advocate from the bench and they're obstructionists and they do everything they can, they're not even feigning being impartial anymore. They're just coming out and saying it. They're just coming out and saying, yeah, we don't believe in the rule of law, even though I enforce the rule of law. You can't do this anywhere else. Look, even when Biden was in office and he said he was going to ignore court orders, it didn't happen. And it got up to SCOTUS and got kicked back. Trump has got injunctions on decisions that were made on these federal judges, and they're pressuring him to do certain things and bring certain people back. We already know Kilmar Abreu is back, blah, 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 blah. But you cannot tell me in this day and age that this is not advocacy, this is not gross neglect for the position that you raised your hand and took the oath for. And you can't tell me that this judge shouldn't be impeached, brought in front of Congress and impeached. Game over. End of list. Once you turn around and you say, and by the way, because of my background, I'll use this as an example. Law enforcement, if the Supreme Court says, hey, you have to do X, Y, and Z from now on, and this is the case law on it, Terry versus Ohio, I'll give you that example. If you don't follow that and go, I'm not doing what the Supreme Court says, I'm just going to do whatever I feel like, both federally and in the state you work in, you're going to be arrested for violation of civil rights. And I should have used Miranda. I didn't mean to use Terry. I should have used Miranda, right? You're going to be prosecuted for civil rights violations as a cop. Yeah, no, I don't have to use Miranda. I'm just going to go into his pocket and go root around, do whatever I want, yada, yada, with no probable cause. I'm going to go into the house with no exigent circumstances, no warrants, just because I feel like it. Boom, you're done. Game over. You're going to be on the front page of every fucking newspaper in the country. And you're going to be the new face on why everybody hates cops, right? You have to follow the highest courts in the land's rulings. That's why they're there. That is why they're part of the separation of powers, right? That's how it works. Congress, the executive, legislative, it's all a balance. It's all a balance. That's what they're doing. That's what they're there for. This judge, nope, I'm not going to do it. The balls of Judge Brian Murphy, who, by the way, born in Maryland, went to Holy Cross, got his JD at Columbia, was some sort of scholar and appointed by Biden. It blows my mind how much lawlessness we see from the left, calls of violence, ignoring the Supreme Court rulings, the riots in the streets being funded by organizations that we gave money to as taxpayers. Over and over and over, we see all of this from the left repeatedly. And they try to turn around and call us lawless. They try to call Trump a dictator because he's doing what the majority of the country wants to do with deportations. He called Trump a warmonger when what did I say? 72% of the people, 82% of the people approved of the one-time strike and out. They do all of these things and then themselves, it's complete lawlessness. When we talk about how much the left hates this fucking country, it's in your face. You have now New York potentially electing a socialist who wants to run, believes in golden fatata and wants to run grocery stores for the city and wants to get rid of cops and wants to dump money that they don't have. You have a vice mayor down in the Los Angeles area calling gang members out to attack the ICE agents. You have attacks on ICE agents, gangs of people lynching the ICE agents, trying to. You have governors suing the federal government because they called up the National Guard to help with the riots that they were not addressing. This is the left. This is the entire left. You have people like Jazzy Crockett, who said, and she's, he should have consulted me before he bombed Libya. Are you out your goddamn mind? First of all, I wouldn't consult you to take my dog for a walk because you are stupid as a fucking brick. Everybody knows you're not really ghetto and ratchet. Everyone knows you grew up in a middle-class family and you went to the most expensive school. What was it, Missouri? And everyone has the tapes of you before you got pulled into office when you were talking sweet and nice. And now you're just like, what'd she do today? Oh, she went after Melania Trump because of the visa that she came in for she said that she doesn't meet the qualifications when they're having the immigration argument. Is that all they have left? Is that all they have left? You have geniuses like this. I'm going to ruin your night just before I go off the air.
He wanted to pick a fight with me, little old me, and he's going to lose that. So
how is he going to lose that? Please expand.
Maybe don't send our country into war.
We didn't.
When the vast majority of Americans, Republican, Democrat, and Independent, don't want us randomly bombing country.
Was not random. Was not random. You just see, they just continuously prove. I mean, the best thing that happens with Democrats is they actually put themselves on camera now. Remember when we used to have to wait for a hot mic issue or Nancy Pelosi to stumble her way up and slur her way through a speech before we'd get these stupid takes that we could talk about? Now, because of social media and cell phones, they do it all by themselves. They show you how dumb they are all by themselves. She's another one. The president didn't tell me. He didn't have to tell you. Stop acting like you know shit when you don't know shit. But that's the entire left. That's what they do. They pretend to know shit. They lie about shit repeatedly. The media covers for them over and over and over again. And then when something is truthful or factual or put out by the government said, hey, this is what's really going on, you have CNN who gets caught, as I said earlier, providing a false report about the battle damage in Iran. And you have idiots like Jake Tapper who has to come out and say this.
Asking questions is literally our job. Demanding facts and answers instead of just taking a president's word for it. Asking.
It's so funny that all of a sudden now they're going to ask questions. They didn't ask shit when we saw Biden turn into a drooling zombie and the auto pen was fucking firing away all day long. They didn't ask shit then. It wasn't until it became so obvious they couldn't hide it that they asked a couple of easy questions. MD Camel, Mission Ready Men says she's a moron talking about Sandy Cortez. And then MD Campbell says Sandy's from Westchester, thinks she's Indira Gandhi or some shit. Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing. She says she's from the Bronx. She lived there until she was 7. And then she moved up to Westchester where she graduated high school. So most of her life. And she's trying to act. I think in that quote too, she said, a girl from the Bronx can eat a guy from Queens' breakfast or something like that. It is just mind-boggling. And these are all the same people. This is, I hate to say it, 80% of academia right here. These are all these people that think because they have a degree that they're smart and that they know better. These are all the people who want to change this country into something that is not supposed to be, was never supposed to be. They want to ruin this country, turn it into what will absolutely be eat itself alive in 50 years. And they want to do it on the backs of all the people that built this country. They are like leeches. They are parasites. They want to take this country from the greatness that it is and can be, and they want to suck all that out and change it to something that will absolutely not survive. Folks, that's it for me. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Sorry I get off to a rough start there, and hopefully Monday will be a little bit better. I don't know what the hell happened. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Hey, wherever you're watching from, X, Twitch, Rumble. To our friends over at KLRN, thank you so very much for carrying us. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you for watching. I will see you Monday. Make sure you check out all the great shows Monday and Friday. This Friday night at 6 p.m., Jersey Joe has an amazing guest. If you like Stargate, you need to watch that interview. It's going to be awesome. Tuesday and Thursday mornings, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon on the East Coast, you have Mission Ready Men. BZ will be off tomorrow night. His computer is still on life support. They're still trying to save its life, but hopefully he will be back the following Tuesday. But normally he's every Tuesday and Thursday, 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 on the East Coast. And then on Sunday nights, the Cosmic Bard takes you on a journey. And he's right here on the SHR Media Network. I don't know what he has coming up this week. I know he would tell me. And if I give it like 30 seconds and talk really slow, he'll put it in the chat room. Nope, he didn't. So that's going to be it for me. I'll talk to you Monday. Have a great rest of your night. Take care. Be safe.
Freedom. One nation in all of human history was built on that bedrock. Ours. A republic of the people, by the people, and for the people. Self-government requires freedom, just as freedom requires an individual willingness to self-govern. Freedom has made America exceptional, but it can only last as long as you and I seek the good, as expressed by the laws of nature and nature's God. It can only last if you and I choose to act as people of character. Forging character has been the pursuit of Hillsdale College since 1844.